the Cover 2 with Phillip Jordan. Phillip and friends break down the latest news in college and professional football every week. So let's get this thing started and snap the football. Hut, hike.
Welcome, everybody, to the latest edition of the Cover 2 with Phillip Jordan. I'm your host, Phillip Jordan. Thanks for checking out the show and making it a part of your day. Of course, you guys know you can follow me on Twitter at @ThePhilJordan. Find the show on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram. Just look up the Cover 2 with Phillip Jordan. You can find the podcast on Apple Podcasts, Google Play Music, SoundCloud, Spreaker, TuneIn, and YouTube. Also on Spotify. And if you do use Apple Podcasts, please subscribe, rate, and review the show. And if you do leave a review, I will read it on a future edition of the show. You guys know you can hit me up on all the different accounts, email, sportstalkphillipjordan@gmail.com if you have a question for the show, a suggestion on a topic for the show, or a guest you think would be good to have on the show. Just let me know that way. Check out all my work over at Last Word on college football. I did put up a new article this past week looking at the offense for the Auburn Tigers, looking ahead of spring practice, so go and check that out. I do have a photography page. Just look up Phillip Jordan Photography on Twitter. It should be easy to find that as well. And please give it a like and share it and let people know about it. Fantastic show this week. First off, I want to give you guys a big thank you for all the listens last week. Positive feedback on my interview with Jordan Diamond. That was a lot of fun. So I'm glad you guys enjoyed that. Good show. Two guests. 247 Sports NFL Managing Editor Allan Bell is on. We're going to be talking about the AAF, the Pittsburgh Steelers, Joe Flacco, and we're going to do 5 questions. And I'll be playing a classic interview for you guys with Troy Sadowski, 1988 All-American tight end for the Georgia Bulldogs. And he spent 9 years in a National Football League. One of the teams played for, the Pittsburgh Steelers. And the reason we're playing a classic interview for you, and I'm going to do that from time to time. I've got some old interviews I'll play every now and then, sprinkle them in, like they call classic interviews. So I hope you guys enjoy that. Enjoy the conversation with Troy, because next week Troy will be on the show with a brand new conversation where we're going to talk about the Georgia Bulldogs going forward, his thoughts on the team right now. So play that previous interview we had, that you guys get to know Troy a little bit. Then next week he'll be on, talk about all that with Troy Trojans. And at the end of the show, we're going to do the question of the week. And this week it is, what is your favorite sports movie? I haven't tallied them all up yet, but it's looking like it's either going to be Remember the Titans, Rudy, or Brian's Song. All football-related movies, which the question was not just restricted to that. So at the end of the show, I'll let you guys know who got it. What movie is the best sports movie out there? So I'm looking forward to doing that. And close the show out with a little closing thought. That's kind of how I'll tease that. Anyways, guys, let's get to the football conversation. And let me first play my conversation with Allan Bell. All right, everybody, joining me now on the show is Allan Bell, 247 Sports NFL Managing Editor. Allan, it's been a little bit since we last talked. How's it going? And thanks for jumping on the show this week.
Yeah, man, it has been a little while. I appreciate you having me back on. Been good, man. Hope the same for you.
Oh, yeah. It's me and you're talking off the air. I'm enjoying this bipolar weather I have to deal with in the wintertime down here in southeast Alabama. But, it's been good. We still got football to talk about. Football's still being played out there, so that's a good thing too.
Yeah, it's always a good thing, man. It's a year-round sport for real now.
Absolutely. Before we jump in, we are going to talk about the Alliance of American Football, and didn't know the news was going to hit with that today, but interesting news did hit. But first, I'd like to say, kept up with you guys over at 247 Sports, what you guys were doing during the Super Bowl. Great coverage as always. Just how was that week like in Atlanta for you guys covering the Super Bowl?
Yeah, man, it was great. Covered a couple of them now, and it's a crazy week, man. It's a really busy week. It's a lot of work. It's a lot of moving around. It's a lot of moving parts, but it's fun because you get access that you just normally wouldn't get anywhere else. Where you could sit there and talk to Bill Belichick, Sean McVay, Tom Brady, Rob Gronkowski, in just a different setting than in a locker room, right? So, you could go as football serious as you want. Obviously there's a lot of media that aren't really sports related at all, that are just kind of entertainment or pop culture, things like that. So, they bring a different wrinkle to it. So, you're kind of in a media scrum, say around, Gronk, and you'll get, a retirement question or, a football injury question. And then somebody will ask about, his celebrity Instagram girlfriend, you know what I mean? So it's just so wild. Like, it's different. You don't really know what to expect, but you just go in and work hard. And like I said, it's a long week, but it's a very fun week. So
you were near Sean McVay, right?
Yeah.
When are you going to be hired as a new head coach in the National Football League?
That's a good question, man. I'm still waiting for some of those calls to come in, dude.
Yeah, I mean, look, what was it that with Arizona Cardinals with Cliff Kingsbury? Didn't it say like he knew Sean McVay? Wasn't that part of their press release for the Arizona Cardinals when they hired him? So hey,
yeah, they legit said we're like, yeah, he's friends with Sean McVay. So we went with it. It wasn't in those exact words, but it's just funny to see other teams reference that. Like, it was the unwritten joke, that we all made, during this coaching hire off season, and they actually said it. So it was pretty good, man.
Man, if he just bumped you, you automatically got the magic touch of Sean McVay to become a head coach. But
if you were to give my boss, a call, let him know, like maybe get some kind of raise or something like that. No, I'm kidding.
I'll see what I can do. I'll put my people on it. My crack staff here over at the Cover 2 with Phillip
Jordan. There we go.
Which is one person, me. So I am the crack staff. So I'll do what I can do.
Well, you work as hard as three people, so give yourself credit for that.
I try to. This is not a lazy business, my friend. It is not a lazy business. You do this because you love it, especially me because I don't make money at this. But anyway. But if anybody out there wants to throw some my way, I'm always glad to take it. The Alliance for American Football. I guess let's start off first 2 weeks. How much of it have you caught, and what's been your initial thoughts of it?
Yeah, I've caught a lot of it, and I think they're doing a good job. It's not easy to create a league out of nothing, right? Like, you just took a ball of silly putty and made a league out of it, So there are certainly some wrinkles for them to iron out. The play on the field, absolutely has to get better across the board. You really need. You can't ask for all 8 teams to be super competitive, but, you just need good games and you need good talent. So that's going to be the hardest thing for them is just finding, just good talent around and not really having a lot of time to put that talent together and let them practice. We always look at an NFL team or a college team in practice or even a 7-on-7, when they talk about where, on offense, the ball didn't hit the ground, right? Like, that takes time to get that all together for any team. You can look at the New England Patriots. It takes time to everyone to gel, to know, where receivers are going, to know tendencies of your offensive line, your running backs. It just takes time. So, overall, I think they're doing pretty good. We'll see how far it goes, but for no real, huge negative press. I know the news came out on Tuesday in terms of some funding. But there's still questions about that. I think they're fine, especially if they're backed by, the companies that they are. So I think they're going to be okay. But, we'll see. It's just hard, and there's a lot of work to do, but they're doing it. And, I think we're seeing a decent product, and it should get better as the season goes along.
Yeah, I saw that story. First, I think it was from The Athletic where they reported that the payroll, paying the players, hadn't been paid yet. Then I saw where Charlie Ebersol came out, said, hey, it's in the system. There's a glitch in the payroll system. That's why it hadn't happened. And then you see, Carolina Hurricanes owner from the NHL, Tom, I hope I'm saying this right now, Dundon, $250 million. He's saying he's an investor. I guess it's which side of the thing you want to really look at. But either way, that's big to have somebody put that much money on you. So, that should set the league up pretty good for a couple of years.
Yeah, you would think so, And if it were, as horrible as a product as that first report came out, nobody would be putting $250 million into it. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. So it can't be that bad. And, yeah, they talked about, Ebersol talked about, the payroll system that they had switched right before, I think, week 1 and checks were going out. So, all reports look like they're going to be all right. They're going to be fine. And, there's no way that they ran out of money before week 1, So
yeah.
I think they're going to be okay. We'll see. Really just the biggest thing for them is the play on the field. And if they could get good games going, get competitive games, get some points on the board, I think people will join in and they'll tune in, and go to games. But you really have to, you have to make people care, especially when you're not on a huge broadcast network like CBS, like ESPN, so when people have to go find your games on, an NFL network or a CBS Sports network, affiliate type station, you have to make people care. And, showing up to where your team's 0-2 and, they've scored 7 points in 2 games, like people aren't going to care for that. People have enough teams that are losing already. But, again, the play on the field will get better as the season goes along. So, they're in for all the players signed 3-year deals. So, let's at least give them a full season, get through an off season, get to the next one before we really put out any judgment, or anything like that.
Yeah, of course, NFL, that's who you cover. For them, a league like this, and see, I think the biggest void the NFL has had since they missed NFL Europe, in my opinion. That was a big thing for the NFL, I think, because quarterbacks got developed there, offensive line there, and especially now where you obviously don't have the practice times that you used to have to develop your backups. Yeah. I mean, there's good solid starters in the NFL, but maybe the backup quarterbacks, and we see it sometimes when a starting quarterback in the NFL goes down, backup quarterback, a lot of times they look lost because they're just not experienced. So I think this league is a great thing for the NFL. And, and these new rules, I mean, who knows? I remember when the XFL back in 2001 debuted the Skycam. Boom. What is something everybody loves to see now on NBC when they did it? The Skycam. So there's innovations in this league, too. I think this league can be such a great asset to the National Football League going forward as well.
Yeah, it definitely can. I mean, look at the NFL as a whole, right? What are the 2 hardest positions to fill? It's quarterback and offensive line. Mm-hmm. So if the NFL can get any type of feeder system to where you have, good backup talent, that's actively playing the game of football, that's staying in football shape, that's getting reps. If you got linemen doing the same thing as well, like it's not going to do anything but help. So we'll see. We'll see when somebody makes the jump from that league to the NFL. I don't know, who that might be. Is it, kind of a veteran guy, that's looking for a spot to fill and he's just trying to stay in shape? Is it a young guy who really, kind of maybe got cut, in his first training camp or something and didn't really get, a great shot in the league, but gets a year in and he shows, hey, I'm better than teams thought. We'll see. But there's a lot of time for that. But yeah, I mean, anytime that you can have players that are actively playing the game, that are actively getting reps, and are staying in good football shape, it's not going to do anything but help all parties involved.
Yeah, and I guess I closed the alliance, conversation with this. And one thing I didn't like the NFL Europe they did, though, is how late their season started and ended, because I think season would end about 2 weeks before training camp, which, after 12 weeks of physical football, that's tough to jump into another training camp. So I do like the fact they started the week after Super Bowl, so their season will end. NFL draft players will be plenty rested and ready to go again for another season when they do make it to the NFL. So that's a big positive, I think, that they're doing better than what NFL Europe did too.
Yeah, that's a great point. So you've got these guys playing and they play, however long the season is. So they're not going into a training camp like right after, a full season in that league. So yeah, I mean, you bring up a good point. And, I'm really interested to see who's the first guy that, kind of makes the jump and how does it work out for him? And hopefully, for anybody that's playing in this league, like you want them to excel and to do as well and go as far as they can in the game. So yeah, I'm just excited for guys to get a chance to play ball, be around team, be in a locker room again. And, we'll see where it goes. So, all the best of luck to everybody in that league.
Yeah, most definitely. And let's hope there is a Kurt Warner-like story that comes out of this league, NFL Europe Arena football. So that's something you got to root for. And he's got to be a guy these guys look to because, what Kurt Warner did, he went on that same journey that they went on. So that's going to be interesting to see. A journey. Joe Flacco, which of course got traded to the Broncos. I know it's not official till March 13th, but I guess you kind of saw this coming. With what happened with Lamar Jackson. I guess I look at the Flacco the Broncos thing with Case Keenum, what he did. I mean, how much better of a current player are they getting in Flacco? Because I mean, I know Flacco's. I'm not saying he is the same as Keenan. Better arm talent, but the Flacco we've seen last couple of years, I just wonder, was this a move of desperation for the Broncos, going for Flacco, hoping maybe he could get some former magic that he had with the Ravens?
Yeah, that's a good question. So, excuse me. John Elway's always going to go try to find a quarterback. Now, I'm not saying he's always going to make the right decision. A lot of them haven't been, but he's going to go after it because he knows how important the position is, right? The hard part is this. When we're looking at Flacco going from the Ravens to the Broncos, well, every team is different, right? So he's going to a Broncos team that really needs a lot of help on the offensive line. So, what Keenum saw last year, Case Keenum's not the best quarterback in the league. I know he had a really good season with Minnesota before that. However, a quarterback is dependent on good offensive line, right? So they didn't have really any protection for him whatsoever. Guys were dropping like flies. So if Flacco's going over there, I mean, there's only so much he can do, So, we'll see what they do. They really need to address that. I still think Flacco's got some game in him. He's probably a better quarterback right now than Case Keenum is. However, there's some stats that show that, Flacco's not exactly, more than, a little bit better than average type quarterback, right? Like, I mean, he showed some flashes of being really good, and he has some stats that say, he wins 49 games, loses 49 games. Flacco had the most batted balls at the line of scrimmage, per throw last year in the NFL. So, there's some certain things that he has to do to get better at, but, we'll see. I mean, it's just all dependent. Football's so tough because, your defense can leave your offense in really great positions. They can leave them in bad positions. Luckily, they got a pretty good D out there. It's so dependent. You need all 53 players that are on a team. So we'll see. We'll see what kind of weapons, that they put around him. It looks like they're probably going to lose wide receiver Emmanuel Sanders. So that's certainly not going to help. We'll just see, man. I think the Broncos, it's an okay move. They're not necessarily, fully in terms of Flacco with guaranteed money. They've got some wiggle room there, so they can still draft a quarterback too. So they've got some options there. We'll see what they do. It's a long way to the season, but yeah, I mean, it was interesting to see Flacco go over there. That was certainly a big trade that nobody really expected, at least this soon.
Yeah, that intrigued me if they draft the quarterback, especially in the first round, and then is Flacco stuck in kind of a situation that he was with Ravens with Lamar Jackson. So that's. I
mean, they could cut him. Like, I mean, they could theoretically cut him, and not necessarily have a ton of guaranteed money to have to give him. So, I mean, they've got a few options here. But yeah, I mean, how will Flacco feel if they do end up drafting a quarterback and this guy, as a rookie, comes into camp and is just better, right? Like, what if he's just better? It's really, really interesting. Trades, they don't happen necessarily as much in the NFL as they do, in other leagues also, although certainly it's starting to happen a little bit more. And there's a reason why. It's just really tough. So, we'll see, man. All we could do is wait and see what happens once OTAs and camp gets here.
Another team that I told you off air, it seems like they're always on in the news, the Pittsburgh Steelers, and I told you off air, I think they're maybe the Kardashians of the NFL. Oh man, Antonio Brown stuff, that's got to be done, right? I mean, he's not going to be a Steeler next year, is he?
No, not at all. Tuesday, Antonio and Art Rooney, the Steelers president, they had met and, came out with Antonio Brown sent a tweet that said, we both agreed that it's time to move on from a trade. So now it puts the Steelers, think about this, it puts the Steelers in a really weird position because now what they have to do is they have to convince teams that, it's been the Steelers' fault that Antonio Brown has been on a social media campaign wanting to get out any way possible in terms of trade leverage to get the most for him. So now they have to put it back on themselves so other teams think, okay, wow, Antonio Brown, is the same AB that we've seen in the league. The Steelers are just kind of crazy, right? So it puts them in an odd position. Yeah, it just puts them in an odd position. And this is why teams just really don't ever want it, the cat out of the bag that they're trying to trade a big player, because it just takes all of your leverage away. As for the team, man, I've said for years now that the Steelers are going to look back at this time in, say, the last 10 years, and they're going to wonder where all their Lombardis went, because they should have had way more Super Bowls. They've been the most talented team on paper and on the field in the NFL, arguably year after year after year. When you've got a guy like Ben Roethlisberger, who's a future Hall of Fame quarterback, you've had Le'Veon Bell, who at his time was the number one running back in the league. You had Antonio Brown, who was his time was the number one wide receiver in the league. Then you draft Juju Smith-Schuster. You're always going to have a good defense. You've got a good offensive line, good strong offensive line, especially with a coach like Mike Munchak in there. They've had so much talent, and you see the Patriots go back year after year after year to the Super Bowl, and you wonder to yourself, you're like, what is going on inside this organization? And why are the Patriots just dominating like this? Because if you look at it again on the field and on paper, the Steelers are a 2 to 3 times better team than the Patriots are. The Patriots just have good leadership with Tom Brady and Bill Belichick. So I'm not putting it all on Mike Tomlin at all. I'm not in that locker room. I am not going to speak for anybody because I don't know the situation. All I know is that between Le'Veon Bell last year, Antonio Brown this year, even Ben Roethlisberger a year and a half ago when he was talking about retiring because he wanted Todd Haley, the offensive coordinator, out. There's something going on in this organization, and you just hate to see it, because if you're a true Steelers fan, you have everything that you need to go on Super Bowl runs after runs after runs, and it's just not coming together. And sometimes you look at it and say, it's surprising they won as much as they did. Yeah,
and you got to think, how's Roethlisberger going to look back at it? Because, he's got the 2 Super Bowls, but with all this talent, you could be saying, man, I'm not saying he would have won as many titles as Brady, but get to the 3rd or 4th title. I mean, we know he's a Hall of Famer, but just his legacy could be heightened if the team had just played up to the level of talent that they had.
Oh, yeah, absolutely, and I'll say this, when Ryan Shazier went down, that certainly didn't have anything to do with, the inside the locker room thing, but, when they had Shazier rolling and at the talent level that he was, I mean, this team was just so good. They were so good, and they're really all going to look back one day and wonder what happened, how did they let it get to this point, because they just should have won way, just so many more Super Bowls. Put 2, I'm not going to say 3. I mean, it's really hard to win Super Bowls, but they should have gone further than they did year after year. There's just so many good players that come through that organization. However, I'll say this, and I'll leave it on this. The Steelers, they draft better than almost anybody in the NFL. I mean, they draft well. They always draft well. They find talent in the first round. They find talent in the 6th round. Look what they've done in wide receiver position alone through the years with Antonio Brown, Hines Ward, John Stallworth. I mean, we can keep going. Their scouting, analytic department, decision making, they do a very good job of that. And that's why they're the Pittsburgh Steelers. So they'll be fine, but you just hate to see kind of wasted years go by when they could have won.
Most definitely, and keep an eye on the Steelers. They're always entertaining to follow in the regular season.
They really are, man. They are always entertaining. There's always something going on. And, if I were a Steelers fan, it'd probably, I'd be pulling my hair out and force my hair to go gray. But there's always something going on with the Pittsburgh Steelers.
Oh, most definitely. Well, Allan, before I let you go, I told you about before we got started. Are you ready to participate in 5 questions?
Yep, ready to go, brother.
It's the who, what, where, when, why, and how. Let's find out what's on the mind of today's guest with 5 questions on the Cover 2 Football Report.
All right. First question. This is the question of the week, too, here on the show, but best sports movie?
Great question. You know what? I am a big Rudy fan. I'm a big Major League fan. I like both styles. I like a really serious football movie, but Major League is tough to beat, man. It's baseball. It's funny. All the aspects were perfect for it. So you know what? I'm going to go with Major League. That's my favorite. I know others will disagree, but I'm going to go with Major League. That's my favorite.
That's pretty good. And in the on Facebook in the questions, there's been a couple responses for that one. So there's some folks right there with you on that one as well.
I feel them.
The next one. This is one I ask everybody. If you weren't in sports media, what would you be doing?
Oh, that's another great question. You know what? I would be doing manual labor. And I say it. I don't know exactly what industry, but I love manual labor. Like, I really do. Not only is it, a good workout, you get to be outside, but I like seeing a physical product created from our work, right? So, whether I were digging ditches, doing construction, something like that, I know that it doesn't come off as like, the most exciting thing in the world, but that's what it would be for me, man. Like, I just enjoy being around some of the fellas, talking a little ball, and put my hands to good work.
All right, that's pretty cool. Next up, the next three will be the state of Tennessee and Nashville related. I'm gonna put you on the spot here. You're in the state of Tennessee, like I said. Best Tennessee quarterback not named Peyton Manning.
Ooh, are we talking just the college, the school, like Tennessee and Knoxville?
Yeah, the Volunteers.
The Vols. All right. Best quarterback not named Peyton Manning. Ooh, that's a good one. Heath Schuler was a heck of a quarterback. Tony Robinson. I'm going to say Tony Robinson. I think it was him. Obviously, was well before Peyton's time. But just his work and the way he played the game and how tough the guy was, the way he could move, throw, run. Robinson could really do it all, man. So I'm going to go with Big Tony Rob on this one.
Interesting. I like it. All right. You're in Nashville, so I got to ask you, favorite country music act?
Favorite country music act? All right. Right now, let's see. It's really tough, man. I haven't been to a good concert in a while, even though, I am in Nashville. You know what, man? Like, if people are going to laugh at me, but I do like Florida Georgia Line. They're fun. They're entertaining. I see them pop up at bars every now and again. They'll jump up and play a song. So just seeing those guys around, I would say that one. However, Eric Church is my guy. I'm a huge Eric Church guy. So Eric Church is my answer. But if it's people that I see around the city popping into some of the bars on Broadway, I would give it to Florida Georgia Line. They definitely make themselves available and out there for all their fans.
That's great. That's great to hear that they do that. You don't hear that often, but it's great. They're there for the fans. Just like
they also have a new bar down there, so that might have a little something to do with it. However, no, man, those are two good guys, and they're really fun. So I would say them around the city, but yeah, man, my answer is Eric Church, dude. I'm a huge Eric Church guy. Anything he does, man, I'm all in on.
All right, and the final question is best food in Nashville.
Best food. All right, so you got a couple options here, right? Like Rolf and Daughters is a really good spot. Kane Prime is probably your best shot, but if I'm going for just best food, I'm going to go with barbecue peg leg porker in the Gulch. It's a great little spot. You can go in there, have some beers, watch a game, get a good plate of barbecue, some Memphis sushi with a little cheese and some sausage. Man, it's awesome. So peg leg porker for sure is my answer on that.
All right, I'll make sure whenever I am in Nashville, I will make sure to find a place and I will stop there and get some. I love some barbecue, man.
Oh, it's good, man. I promise you. I promise you, it's fantastic. It's not expensive at all. It's not some hoity-toity, any type of like that, man. Just go in some jeans, t-shirt, grab you a beer, and they'll throw down some great food for you.
That sounds awesome. I'll do that whenever I visit Nashville. I'll make sure to stop by there. And Allan, it's a lot of fun. Talking with you about the NFL, the AAF, and the 5 questions are really fun too. And if the listeners wanted to follow you online, where they can find you and tell us about the great NFL coverage over at 247Sports.
Yeah, definitely, man. So, you can find me on Twitter, Allan Bell 247. But yeah, just go to 247sports.com. You'll see me all over there. We've got some great stuff coming for the Combine next week. We've got some great stuff coming for the draft already. We're going to break down every position in terms of players at the Combine, every position of players that are in free agents. We even broke down on Tuesday, the best off-season move that each team can make. So we got a lot of content, man. So hit 247sports.com, click the NFL tab, and find your team. I think you'll enjoy it.
All right. Appreciate it, Allan, and I'm sure we'll catch up sometime down the road, talk some more NFL, but I look forward to that. And once again, I appreciate you taking the time out this evening to be on the podcast.
Yeah, buddy. Look forward to it, man. Thank you so much for having me.
Everybody joining me this week on the show is Troy Sadowski, a 1988 All-American tight end for the Georgia Bulldogs and spent 10 years in the National Football League. Troy, thanks for taking some time out and being on the show this week.
My pleasure. Been looking forward to it.
I've been looking forward to this conversation as well. And, before we get started in your playing days, you had a family history in athletics. Is that right?
It is. I had my dad, Bob Sadowski, and two uncles played professional baseball. And when I was growing up, actually, baseball was my sport. I was going to follow the footsteps of my dad, but then it got to the point where football kind of took over and dominated when it came to sports. So I made that decision to stick with football. Also, growing up, I was always known as Bob Sadowski's son. So it was pretty neat to be able to get into a sport that other family members weren't involved in, and they actually could make a name for yourself.
Yeah, and other than that, what was it about the game of football that drew to you?
The baseball part of it came and rather easily for me because my dad. When I was 8 years old, I was out hitting, 95-mile-an-hour fastballs from my dad, and baseball just came so easy. And football, it took a little more effort, and it was something I wasn't used to. Actually, when I was growing up playing football for the Atlanta Colts, I hated football. I wasn't very good at it. I had to play because it was based on weight in the older division of the kids that were 3 and 4 years older than me. I could never seem to break the lineup, and I never played unless it was 63-0.
When you started playing, were you a tight end to start off with, or did you play other positions?
I played other positions when I was growing up. I did a lot of defense, the defensive line, and then in high school, I was actually 8th grade. I was a quarterback and a safety, and kind of grew out of that position rather quickly, and then went over to the tight end position as well as outside linebacker. And when I signed at the University of Georgia, the first week we were there, the freshmen, it was an evaluation week, and after the week was over, Coach Dooley called me into his office and said that we wanted to move me from outside linebacker to tight end. And looking back, obviously Coach Dooley knew what he was doing.
You talked about, your recruitment. What was it like back then with, being recruited, going to Georgia? Because, nowadays, and the way it is today, it's so publicized, recruiting now. It's almost its own sport in itself with the coverage recruiting gets. How was it different when you were getting recruited?
It has changed a lot. But the core stuff of it, you get to choose, narrow it down to 5 schools, and you can take 5 official visits. But like you said, it was not as publicized. It was not a media event like it is today. We didn't have special gatherings at restaurants and sports bars to announce our decisions. It was just kind of one of those things that you did, and I actually did mine when Georgia was in Athens practicing for the Cotton Bowl. I was asked and invited to come up by Bill Lewis, who was the main recruiter that recruited me, and just watching the practice and being able to be that close. After the practice, Coach Dooley and I took a little walk over by the track, and we're talking, and I just felt at that time I was ready to go ahead and commit, so I did.
And that had to be awesome, like first time meeting Vince Dooley. You got a legend in the sport. Just what was he like?
It was. He not only is he a coach, he's also a good friend. And I spoke with him earlier in the spring, and he's always been accessible for everybody. And he's always had an open door policy. And I've really been fortunate enough to develop a relationship with him outside of football. So that's something that has been special and continues to be special.
You played the tight end position. Was there any in that time, when you were playing at Georgia, or was there any other like tight ends playing maybe in the NFL or even college that you looked up to?
When I was growing up, it was Kellen Winslow for the San Diego Chargers. He was always somebody that I admired as watching him play because he was well-rounded player when he played tight end. He not only just put up good statistics, the guy could block, and that was one of the things I took a lot of pride in, was being a well-rounded tight end. And at Georgia, we run the football a lot. The tight end position, you're a blocker first and a receiver second, and I'm still amazed that I actually made a couple different All-American teams, because a lot of these guys, I caught 42 passes in my whole career when I was at Georgia. And guys now, they catch that in half a season. So it was pretty neat when I got that phone call from Coach Dooley letting me know that I made the Walter Camp All-American team. And it just shows me and showed a lot of people that there's more to than just stats. They look at your total game and on and off the field as well.
Oh, when you look back at your time at Georgia, was there like a game or a moment that really stood out for you, just for yourself individually and also like on a team level too?
I think the sweetest part for a lot of us was when we found out that Coach Dooley was going to be retiring, and that our last games were also going to be his last games. And we ended up finishing out the season beating Georgia Tech at home, and then going off and playing in the Gator Bowl and finishing, getting his 200 and 201st victories was quite special. And to be a part of that, because he was such a great coach for so many years, and he is still a part of Georgia football. He might not be there all the time, but his legacy and it still remains, and it was a beautiful thing being part of that.
Yeah, and that's great because too, most coaches, really, they don't get that. There's so many coaches, it ends badly, and for him, 9-3 season, you guys, send them out with a victory. It's a rarity almost, and it seems like any sport just to be able to go out that way.
It was, and I'm really thankful and grateful that I was part of the team. You mentioned the 9-3 record, and when I was at Georgia, Auburn was a thorn in our side. There were twice that we lost to them that would have sent us through the Sugar Bowl, and I would have had 2 SEC championship rings. But it ended up, I enjoyed my time there. This past January, I had got a call from a friend and a text message that I guess there was a magazine that came out around bowl season that Lindy's had recognized me as Georgia's all-time tight end, and that was quite an honor to be named, because there's been so many great tight ends play at Georgia, and to be mentioned with names like Herschel Walker and Hines Ward was quite an accomplishment and an honor.
Yeah, you mentioned Auburn there, and I wanted to ask you because I see Georgia, and for me, I always wonder, or maybe from a player standpoint, the biggest rivalry, because I hear so much about the Florida game. That's big. The Georgia Tech, and Auburn's always been a big rivalry. When you were playing, who was the main rival for Georgia?
I think we had several different ones. Auburn was one of them. Georgia Tech, because of the in-state rivalry, but that Georgia-Florida game, that was always a special game that everybody circled on the calendar, because they knew that they were going to head to Jacksonville. And it was a little different back then. That's back when the Gator Bowl was made of aluminum and metal, and the crowd was always especially excited for those games. You're coming in on the team bus, and the opposing team would come over and start rocking the bus back and forth, and just the stamping and the stomping in the stands during pregame was quite a spectacle to be around. And that was always one of my favorite games, because at the time, I mean, I think the one year, it was either 85 or 86, Florida was ranked number one in the country, and we were able to go down there and knock them off. Had the opportunity to play in those games with some incredible players. I remember Keith Henderson and Tim Worley running all over Florida their freshman year, and Lars Tate. That was another thing, being a tight end at Georgia. Although the statistics weren't large, the satisfaction was there, and it was just as satisfying to me to watch one of those great running backs, Keith Henderson, Tim Worley, Lars Tate, Rodney Hampton, run a toss sweep, come off of your block, and run 85 yards for a touchdown. That, to me, was just as good as catching a touchdown pass in a game.
Well, then after that, Georgia, you go on to the NFL. Just, how cool was it for you to be drafted by the Atlanta Falcons and get to stay in the state of Georgia?
That was exciting, getting to play for the home team. I got to, for most of my career, to stay local, so to speak. And the Smith family at the time, they were, Georgia Bulldogs. So that was one thing that they were excited about, was getting a Georgia Bulldog. But I'd learned real quickly that the NFL, it works a little bit differently than most sports. The window of opportunity, it rapidly closes. I think the average NFL career lasts 2 years or less. So to be able to last 10 years was quite a feat. But starting out with the Falcons, and being the local guy was great. On and off the field, there's a lot of people wanted to come in and talk to their football teams at their banquets and whatnot. So got to make a little money on the off season as well. But getting a chance to play for the Smith family was nice. They were very welcoming and gracious to myself, as well as some of the other players that were there. And being in that draft class with players like Sean Collins and Deion Sanders was also special as well.
And, kind of like we talked about with the, recruiting process, the process between, when you played your last game at Georgia to the draft, what was that process like? Once again, it's like today, the NFL draft is this big thing. It's this big event. It beats other sports. NBA playoffs and TV ratings. It's such a big deal. So for you going into the draft after you got done at Georgia, what was that whole process like?
Well, it was just the same back then. It just wasn't publicized and viewed the way that it is now. Now they have the NFL Network and all these other channels that they show the combine. You can watch it. You can watch replays of it. They didn't have that. They still had the combine, and I was invited to go and was excited about being there. But it wasn't the spectacle that it is now. But it was interesting to get you get the opportunity to come in there and size yourself up against the other players that played the same position around the country that you heard about. And when I was there, Walter Reeves at Auburn was another name, and then Marv Cook, the University of Iowa. He had all the statistics and made several All-American teams as well. So that gave us that opportunity to size up and see how we matched up against them up close, and that was a lot of fun. And then you have the interview process. They still had pro days when they came out to the schools and looked at players individually. So being there and then being asked to participate in those things was quite an honor, because they don't just do that with everybody. And then eventually I was drafted in the 6th round, 145th by the Atlanta Falcons. that's back when they had 12 rounds. Now they don't have that many rounds. So just getting drafted was exciting as enough.
Oh, when you were growing up, did you have a favorite NFL team growing up?
Well, when I was growing up, the Falcons weren't very good, but my dad was from Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, and I was a huge Steeler fan. All my relatives up in the Pittsburgh area, when I was growing up, used to send down jerseys and hats and T-shirts and things like that. So I grew up a Pittsburgh Steelers fan, and then eventually getting a chance in '97 and '98 to play for that team was like a dream come true. Unbelievable franchise. The Rooney family, they run it like a big family. They treat the players like family. And getting that chance to be there. And Mr. Rooney was really big on bringing back former players. He felt that champions will breed champions and that championships breed championships. So it was very common to be walking down the hallway, and then here comes Franco Harris, Rocky Blyer, Lynn Swann. And I was like a little kid. I'd tell people, hey, man, give me a Sharpie. Mr. Swann, can you sign my shirt for me? So that was kind of neat. And then I got to play with some incredible players on both sides of the ball up in Pittsburgh. And that was the closest I got to winning a Super Bowl. We lost in the AFC Championship game to the Denver Broncos, who went on to be world champions that year. But just to be there and play for a team that you watched when you were little was incredible.
Yeah, I've always admired the Pittsburgh Steelers franchise because, I mean, one, just the consistency with coaches. There's not a lot of turnover there. There hasn't been in the franchise's history. And you see a lot of teams out there nowadays, if you have one bad year, it's time to get rid of the coach. The patience and consistency there at the top, I think that equals a big reason why they've been consistently one of the best franchises in the NFL's history.
Oh, absolutely. From Chuck Noll to Bill Cowher to Mike Tomlin, they've just had an incredible staff. And like you said, there's not a lot of turnover, but they're a little bit different. I mean, they truly do treat everybody like family. It's like a big family. I mean, when I was up there, Mr. Rooney had found out that Mike Webster, one of the centers that played for the Super Bowl teams in the 70s, that he had hit some hard times, and somebody had said that he was homeless. I don't know if that was accurate, but I know that Mr. Rooney sent somebody to get him and brought him and put him in an apartment across the street from the stadium and gave him a job. And that's just the way that they handle those things. And they've really been fortunate, and they've had some incredible teams over the years. And I think that that's just the trickle down that comes from the top of the ownership.
And I was looking, through your career in 1991, you were with the Kansas City Chiefs. Interesting that Bill Cowher was on the staff there, and then he was your head coach with the Steelers. I mean, I know he was on the defensive side of the ball. Was there any familiarity with each other? Was that a part of going to the Steelers? What was that connection?
It was. Back then, Marty Schottenheimer was the head coach. Bill Cowher was the defensive coordinator, linebacker coach. And Herman Edwards and Tony Dungy were defensive back coaches for them. It was an all-star staff. But, the NFL is the good old boy network. Bill Cowher remembered me from '91 when I was with the Chiefs, the type of player that I was. And also I was coming from the Cincinnati Bengals for the 3 years that I was there, and had a lot of playing time and played the Steelers an awful lot. So he was very familiar with me, as well as Mike Mularkey, who was the tight end coach. So I think a lot of that had to do with it.
Yeah, what was that like going from a one division, team at that time, the AFC Central with the Cincinnati, and going to Pittsburgh?
It was it was awesome to go from the cellar dweller a team that was struggling all the time to division champions was awesome. And then getting a chance, I did the same thing after I reached an injury settlement with Pittsburgh. I had dislocated my collarbone, and they had to put me on IR. But it wasn't an IR for the entire year, and the only way to get to play for another team would be to do an injury settlement and break my IR status with Pittsburgh. But that meant I had to go somewhere else. I couldn't come back and play with them. And I was able to catch on with the Jacksonville Jaguars. And they were the next up-and-coming team in that division. And actually, the year that I went from Pittsburgh to there, Jacksonville won the division championship that year and went to the playoffs. And we ended up losing in the divisional round to the New York Jets. But I went from one great team to another great team. It was an incredible way to finish up my career.
What went into your decision, to hang them up, to call it a career?
After Jacksonville, there was nothing that was better than a 50-50 chance of making anybody's roster. The Washington Redskins actually had brought me in, but they were bringing me in because they wanted to use me as bait to get another player to re-up his contract and re-sign with the team. So at that point, I realized I didn't want to be put in any games with teams. I've had a really good career lasting 10 years, and I didn't want to be anybody's training camp person. There are guys that they'll keep on the roster throughout training camp that take all the reps and take all the punishment just to get the starter through okay and uninjured, and then they release them. And at that point in my career, I didn't want to be somebody like that, known as the guy that just tried to hang on. So at that moment, I realized it was time to move on.
You look at in the NFL, being you were a player, you were in it, as me as a fan and other fans, you see from an outside point of view, just what is the NFL life like?
It was like a fantasy world. And looking back, we are all one decision away from stupid. Life is just a series of choices. And when I was playing early on in my career, some of the choices I made were not the best choices. And looking back, I wish I could have a life remote and rewind back and make some different choices that I made throughout my life, especially in my career after reaching the NFL, because I always tell my kids that men, their brains really don't start operating properly till they're in their 30s. And there's a lot of things I would have done differently because when you're there, it's a whole different world. It's the glitz, the glamour, the money, the cars, the homes, the jewelry, the traveling, the vacations. But that's not the way that life really is for a lot of people. And it's like a fantasy world. And I would love to be able to go back and change and alter some of the decisions that I made throughout my career because I think that they were made based on a young man that was very immature in life.
Well, I just hit. I'm 31 now, so I hope my brain finally does start working. There's question about that sometimes. Sometimes what I say behind this microphone, especially. The position you play tight end has really changed. Really, it seems like in the last maybe 5 to 10 years, I mean, you see tight ends like Gronkowski, what Jimmy Graham was able to do, Travis Kelce, so on with these guys now. Just what is your thoughts on the way the tight end position has perhaps changed, like I said, in the last decade?
It has morphed. They're now receivers and blockers second. But when I got into the league, I think the opportunity that I had to play, was because I was a blocking tight end. I also played all the special teams, which a lot of the superstars don't want to do because they don't want to get injured, but I was willing to do that because the more that you do, the more that you can do, the more valuable you are, and the more likely that you are to make a roster. I was not a multi-million-dollar superstar by any means, but I had to fight year in and year out to either keep my roster spot or make a roster on a new team. So I had to do some of the dirty things that a lot of the players didn't want to do. But now these guys are catching 60, 70, 80, 90, 100 balls, and they're surpassing the 1,000-yard and receiving yards. So they have really stepped it up, and they're almost giant wide receivers.
Yes, it's to me like to see a player like I said, like a Rob Gronkowski. I'm like just throw it up to him. I mean, sometimes it seems like he cannot be guarded. It's amazing, how even the game has changed as much. Like you were mentioning when you was at Georgia, it was so much a running. You're a running team. Now it seems like everybody's just shotgun spread in college, throwing it all over the place.
Well, and that's what it is now. I mean, everybody wants to open it up. They want the high-scoring games. They want to see Oklahoma, Georgia, Rose Bowl. They want to see the points go up on the board, and that's the way to do it, is to spread everybody out and make these defenders play in open space, and it makes things a little more difficult. Look what Alabama did with Georgia in the national championship game. They were able to come out in the second half with the quarterback Tua, and he threw the ball around, and it made things a little bit different. Georgia had to make adjustments to it, and by the time they could do anything, it was a little bit too late. But that's what people like to see now. They want to see the yards after the catch. They want to see the quick plays, the screens to the wide receivers, and let them run. I like it. I mean, the high flying. I was part of that when I was in Atlanta with Jerry Glanville. He ran that run and shoot offense, and you're starting to see a little bit of that, a hybrid run and shoot. But the quarterbacks, we need to have different quarterbacks when it comes to that. Not, you can't run a spread offense with a Ben Roethlisberger. He's your prototype drop back quarterback. I can't see him pulling the ball down and running, but I'm sure he would if he had the chance.
It's crazy with him. It seems like he's just swatting gnats sometimes back there when he's back quarterback. Talked about your college, your pro career, So what are you up to nowadays? What can you tell the listeners what you're doing now?
Well, when I got out of football, I got into real estate and realized that my wife was a real estate broker and we didn't work well together. So I got on the mortgage side of it and became a mortgage banker. I did that for 13 years, and then I had an opportunity to get into practical life and end-of-life planning. A lot of people refer to it as estate planning. Me and a friend of mine, we were able to work with a company called CLA Estate Services that were out of Frisco, Texas, and we traveled around the Southeast and doing estate planning presentations at Embassy Suites and Hyatt's, places like that. But we had an opportunity to branch out. I was radically saved at 31 in the summer of 1997, and God has opened up some incredible doors of opportunities. We got a partnership agreement. We have a partnership agreement with the Free Will Baptist Foundation. There's 5 of us that travel around the country, and we go into their churches and we educate the people on the best ways to protect their family and how to keep the government out of your family when life events happen. I'm kind of like the National Weather Service that comes on your radio or your television we all hear that annoying sound, but it automatically grabs our attention because that's what it's there for, because they're going to educate us and tell us what's going on about the probability of bad weather ahead of us when it comes to steering our family ships. So we educate people and teach them how to keep the government out of their family business, how to avoid the probability of the storms ahead, and how they can navigate the waters through those storms so their families arrive on the other side safe and sound. So we've been doing this now for about 5 years. I absolutely love it because I get to work with like-minded people that are Christ-centered and have Christ-centered lives. And getting a chance to work with people that have the same mindset as you is really special. This is God's ministry, and He allows Troy Sadowski to come along for the ride, and it's been awesome.
Is there anywhere out there for if anybody was interested where they can find out more information?
They could contact me. You can send me an email at troysadowski@comcast.net. That's probably the best way to do that. So if you want to keep the government out of your family business, I'd love to help you. I think it'll be a blessing and an answered prayer to a lot of people.
All right, sounds good. And Troy, I've had a lot of fun talking to you. Football, your career, and everything else. And I really appreciate you taking the time out, being on this week's edition of the Football Report podcast. And I look forward to maybe chatting with you sometime down the road as well.
Oh, absolutely. It's been my pleasure. And if you need me for anything, just give me a call.
All right, thank you. I appreciate it.
Go Dogs.
Hi, everybody, and awesome conversations there with Allan Bell and the classic interview with Troy Sadowski. Like I said, Troy will be on the show next week to talk all things Georgia football. So question of the week was, what is your favorite sports movie? So we had to tally, and it came out as a tie between Brian's Song and Remember the Titans. Several different movies were announced, picked in here. I mean, there's a ton of movies here. I mean, so you guys brought it. Really appreciate it. So there was 40 comments overall. Rudy did get 4. So Remember Titans, Brian's Song tied at 5. Rudy got 4. So that was 14 of the movies there, and then there was 26 other titles you guys announced. So we appreciate that. My favorite one is tough. I really like the movie Any Given Sunday. That's one of my favorites. I know a lot of people criticize it, don't like it. Friday Night Lights, great. Billy Bob Thornton, he was fantastic. I love the TV show too as well. Somebody did mention Allan Bell's favorite one, and that was Major League. So try to do that stuff like that every week. Interesting questions to get you guys' opinion, especially with us being in the off season right now and everything. Just kind of have some creative questions for you guys. If you have any suggestions on what should be a question of the week, just let me know. Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, all that good stuff, and also leave a review and suggest it. And or you can email me at sportstalkphillipjordan@gmail.com. Just do that. All right, I'm going to leave you guys with something different than I would usually do, and this has really kind of been on my heart last few days. And you got really, this is not a sports thing. This is life. We're going to talk life here. I used to do life updates when it was called the Football Report. This could be a life update, I guess. And a lot of stuff triggered with me why I wanted to talk about this. I saw a quote by Tim Tebow. You're always going to have critics and naysayers, and people that are going to tell you won't, that you can't, that you shouldn't. Most of those people that didn't, that wouldn't, that couldn't. Don't be defined by outside sources. You go after your dreams. And I've been reading and watching other stuff with Tim Tebow. And, we all stress in life. We all have things we worry about. Can I get that job? Can I get that promotion? Can I get back on the radio? That's one for me. can I get this girl to like me, or this guy? Because I think we have female listeners here. I would hope so. And other things going on, you know. Well, past this class, what's going on here? You know, such different situations in life, and life's tough. It is. I mean, every day has a challenge. And how do we overcome that challenge? And I think the best way to overcome that challenge is through Jesus Christ and God. And I have things that weigh me down. We all do. Worry us. And most of those things are things that we cannot control, to be honest. We can't control a lot of things, what goes on, but we stress, we worry, we want to be able to control them things. And there's only one person that really is in control. That's God. And you got to place your faith there and just take those issues, take those problems, and give them to Him. Pray about them. Let Him take care of it in His time. For example, for me, I love podcasting every week. It gives me a platform. And I really have no restrictions here. Of course, radio, you've got time constraints. So I love to do that. But you just can't worry about those things. And if you really just drop them and just let God do what He wants to do with them and let Him work it out on His time, not on your time. See, we want things done quick. Maybe that's not the plan. Maybe we need to wait a little bit. At the right time, not the now time. And if you have dreams, you chase those dreams. If you have a talent, God gave you that talent for a reason. I believe I have the gift of gab, talking. Whether it be me talking about myself right now, or have Allan Bell on, or talking to Troy, or whoever's on here to show with me. Or go out in day-to-day life and just, talk. And from personal experience, lately I have let stuff weigh me down. Stress. Things that maybe I could have done differently. And also things that I just can't control. But, and then I quote Tim Tebow, outside sources. You got to push for your dream. There's your dream. Just keep pushing for it. Never stop. I mean, look what he's doing. He was a football player and now he's a baseball player. He's chasing his dream. So, and that just really is on my heart. And when I finally just looked at myself and really thought about it, and God worked on me one day this week. I got by myself. I was doing my day job, and I just could feel Him talking to me. Because you've been through so much worse things, and everything's going to be okay. Like I said, just because that person you like didn't like you back, or that didn't work out, or you didn't get the job you wanted, or things aren't going your way and you stress over it and you want things to be better, you can worry about those things, but also pray about it, hand them over to God, and He'll take care of it. And you'll be okay, because everything will work out the way it's supposed to, according to His plan, not yours. His plan always works. Your plan is going to mess up, and life is hard. But you got to get up every day, figure it out, figure out what you're doing, pray about it, and He'll help you figure it out, and you'll be okay. That's just something that's been weighing on me, and I've never really dived into, talked about my religious beliefs a lot here, any podcast, and I'm definitely not touching politics, still not touching politics. But that was weight on my heart, and I really felt like I needed to share that and talk about that. And I hope, maybe somebody listens all the way through this podcast, and if they hear this part, maybe it helped somebody. And if it did, I'm glad I could share that. But He's there for you. Just, don't stray away like I have, and you'll be okay. And things will work out, like I said, the way they're supposed to, according to God's plan and God's will. And life's be good. Not easy, like I said, but you keep pushing forward and go through, live life the way He would want you to live through His plan. Everything will work out in the end. I believe so anyways. But guys, that's going to do it for this week's edition. A little bit longer than probably normal, but I'm glad you guys could check it out. You know, like I said, find me on all the social media platforms, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, the Cover 2 PJ. You find me on my personal account on Twitter at @ThePhilJordan. Check out all my work at Last Word on college football. Got an Auburn article up there right now. Find the podcast on Apple Podcasts, Google Play Music, SoundCloud, Spreaker, TuneIn, and YouTube. Also on Spotify. If you are on Apple Podcasts, please subscribe, rate, and review the show. Really appreciate it when you guys go and do that. Remember, reviews, I'll read them on the show, and I have my photography page, Phillip Jordan Photography. So go and check that out. Always, guys, I'll be back next week. Troy Sadowski. Till then, bye-bye.
Thank you for downloading the Cover 2 with Phillip Jordan. Tune in next week for more great college and professional football talk. And subscribe on Apple Podcasts or wherever you get your podcasts.